Hey YAG Nation, we're in Park Allen in Ward 10. We're here with Senol. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Harun.
So we're in Ward 10 and you're running to be a candidate. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am, unlike a lot of the other candidates running for City Council, I actually have not lived in Edmonton all my life. I am a relatively new Canadian. I moved here a little over 6 years ago, but I've lived in 9 different cities in 5 countries in my life. Varying in size between like 40,000 people to 20 million people. New York City, Prague, Istanbul, a lot of different places. So that gives me kind of a fresh perspective on how I look at some of the issues with our city. I am not a career politician. I actually work for the U of A as a budget and HR coordinator, and I am a community activist. Since I moved to Edmonton about 6 years ago, I've been active, everywhere I've been, but in Edmonton, this is the area where we are. I've actually planted 3 trees around the corner over there with my son in the Park Allen, around the Park Allen basketball courts. And I have been active in the community since then with the multicultural communities. I am the president of the Park Allen Parents Association here. I am the chair of a playground development committee, and I volunteer. I call myself a serial volunteer, but I think the different background that I have, both as an administrator, also as someone that has lived around the world in different cities, I think that gives me kind of a fresh perspective. And I want to bring those ideas to the council, and that's why I'm running.
Awesome. So you brought us here to Park Allen, and you did want to discuss about the houses that are around this area and about Infill. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you brought us here?
Sure. Well, the reason I brought you here not only because this is the first neighborhood I moved to in Edmonton, but also because for the mature neighborhoods that are located in Ward 10, infill is a big issue, and the public engagement throughout that process is a big issue. So what I advocate in terms of how we approach infill in the future is not a one lot or one house at a time kind of renewal, but I propose whole block transformations. So I am an advocate of working with nonprofit development agencies. So we're not actually trying to change one house that's located next to a bungalow, but we have a plan for the whole neighborhood. So what I'm advocating is front-loading kind of the planning process. A lot of the communities in the mature neighborhoods in Ward 10 don't have an area development plan. They're so outdated. So I actually advocate creating some, working with the communities, having a vision for how they would like to see development for their community in the future. We all agree, pretty much everybody's in agreement, that we do need to densify some of the mature neighborhoods because it's not sustainable for future generations, especially young people like you, to maintain the service levels as we grow within the city. But we do understand mature neighborhoods have to grow, but it has to be done in a way that the community envisions it. So in Park Allen, for instance, around the park area, there are some commercial convenience store zoning areas that are in here, CNC zones. I particularly think they might offer excellent locations for either building mixed-use like stores underneath and apartments above, etc. solutions, or row houses, things like that. But all of that depends on what the communities want. In each community, there are actually apparent areas that communities would want to see some increased density potentially. So that's what I'm advocating for. Work with them, identify where it makes sense to build maybe medium density housing rather than just lot splitting and building 2 very expensive houses young families can't afford. I'm advocating for developing things where the community wants and developing affordable housing through nonprofit development agencies.
So you're talking about advocacy and talking with the community, and part of that, what we're trying to do is get young people to get involved and talk with, their counselors, get involved with the city of Edmonton. So how are you going to go about doing that advocacy and talking with young people? Sure,
it's very important, of course, to get young people involved. As we all know, in municipal elections, actually, majority of the people that vote are actually older people, 55 and
plus,
above.
Yeah.
Exactly. So considering a lot of the decisions that the city is making today are actually going to impact the young people's lives a lot more than the old people, it's very important to get them engaged. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, first of
Thank
all.
you.
That's great. Great work, great start. I kind of do the same within my own community. As I mentioned before, I am a new immigrant. I've only been here about 6 years, but compared to a lot of the new immigrants coming into Canada, I happen to be lucky in the sense that I already speak English relatively better than a lot of the new immigrants. And I have a position at the university where I can actually use my education and skills. So I consider my role as being kind of a role model for the younger generations to show them that it's possible. They can dream big. They can actually get involved. That's how we basically run the multicultural organization that I am in the board of. We have a TCS 2.0, we call them the young generation. So they bring a lot of fresh ideas and they bring their energy and they get involved in decision making about the future of our organization. And the same thing applies for youth in Edmonton. So I do support, of course, a lot of the initiatives like the Youth Council, but there's a lot more we can do. Yesterday when I was door knocking, I actually had I received the hardest questions I got through the process from a 14-year-old who has been studying elections at school. So there are actually a lot of young people that are interested. It's a matter of how we can get them involved, and the best way to get them involved is to actually not use them just for legwork and running around. They actually have fresh ideas. Let them actually materialize. Let them come up with ideas and implement things, and that will, I think, energize and encourage them to get involved more.
Well, I guess on that same kind of note, we also wanted to see more women and more cultural diversity in politics,
Exactly.
which you represent very well. But what have you done to get others in your communities and in Ward 10 in general to get involved that are, women or those of different
Sure.
different minorities?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I am running, of course. Unfortunately, our council only has one woman representation right now. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I got inspired to run this year mostly because last year I was very honored to co-organize an event at the Alberta Legislature. It was the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, for women getting the right to vote. Of course, it was mostly white women and landowners, but still, it's an important step in the history. But I worked with some great women, inspiring women throughout that organization. And one of the things that I did, for instance, as we were organizing, I actually found volunteers from my Turkish Canadian community to help with the event. 5 wonderful ladies from the Turkish Canadian community came and helped us, and some of them had been living in Edmonton for 20 years. They hadn't visited the legislature yet. So you do need some leaders to open the way for multicultural groups, for women. A few people who, once you get to some key positions, you're able to actually both just as I said, be a role model and show people that they can dream big. There's a motivational factor. Mm-hmm. You also learn, like I've learned throughout the campaign process this year, how much of a work it has been. I haven't been born here. I didn't get the opportunity to volunteer for other political campaigns in my life. I've only been living here 6 years, just setting up. So I now know what it entails to run for office. So I'll be able to help the next person, whether it's myself or in the next campaign, or somebody else from the multicultural community, or another woman helping with their campaigns. I'll be ready to help them.
Yeah, so we got a little bit caught up on community engagement.
Yes.
So if there's any other issues in Ward 10 that are big issues that you want to touch on and how you plan to actually tackle those issues, you should let our audience know what those things
Sure.
are in Ward 10.
I do want to mention one thing. Of course, in the Ward 10 election and conversation, the mature neighborhoods and the infill kind of took over and appears to be the major issue. But Ward 10 is not only made up of the mature communities in the north. We have a huge chunk of our ward south of Anthony Henday, there are a lot of new communities out there that are in need of services, park development, building community halls, traffic. James Mowat Drive is a big issue. Extension of LRT to Heritage Valley is a big issue. Park and ride facilities to give them access, so they can easily ride, do their chores in the morning, but still take the transit if they want to. Those are all big issues, and those are things I would love to work on resolving if I am lucky enough to be elected as councillor. LRT thing, Heritage Valley extension is already in the works. From a transportation standpoint, beyond Heritage Valley, I actually also support investing in bus rapid transit solutions, because a lot of the people that are moving into those southern neighborhoods, they don't have the luxury to wait 10 years, 15 years for LRT to be completed. Mm-hmm. We can actually build bus rapid transit 3 times faster and 3 times cheaper for the city. So those are all things I would like to tackle.
Well, I'm guessing we can get more information on your website if you want to.
Yes, of course. So you can find more information on my website at www.simsenol.ca. And thank you very much, Yagnatian Austin Haroun, for giving me the opportunity to tell people about myself.
Well, thanks for coming out on this very chilly day. My fingers are frozen, and the wind is blowing, but you're out campaigning anyway, so it was great to meet you.
Thank you, Haroun. Thank you.
Well, YAG Nation, we're going to see you guys later. Come check us out on our website, October 16th. Don't forget to vote. It's important.
Yes, your vote matters.